When the great flood finally receded and the waters withdrew from the face of the earth, they left behind a world reshaped by silence and mud, a land reborn, yet scarred by chaos. From that saturated soil arose life in countless forms, molded by excess and raw creation. Some were gentle, others monstrous. Among the most dreadful was Python, an ancient and colossal serpent whose immense body stretched across the plains and whose poisonous breath filled the air with terror. The creature haunted the region surrounding Mount Parnassus, and at its approach, entire communities fled in panic, abandoning their homes to seek refuge in caves and hidden valleys. No mortal dared oppose it, and for a time, fear ruled the land. It was then that Apollo stepped forward, radiant son of Jupiter, bearer of light, prophecy, and song. Until that moment, his arrows had known only lesser targets, swift deer, mountain goats, creatures of the wild, but now they were destined for a far greater trial. Standing against a force born from the aftermath of the flood itself, Apollo drew his bow. The string sang, the arrows flew with divine precision, and Python fell, its vast and ancient body finally stilled. With the serpent's death, terror loosened its grip on the land. To honor this victory and mark the triumph of order over chaos, Apollo founded the Pythian Games, inviting mortals to compete in strength, speed, and skill beneath his gaze. In those early days, the victors were crowned with simple leaves, for the laurel had not yet been chosen by fate to become sacred. Filled with pride after his triumph, Apollo soon encountered Cupid, the youthful god of love, playing lightly with bow and arrows that seemed, to Apollo, little more than toys. Amused and confident in his own power, Apollo mocked the child openly. He questioned what such a young god could possibly do with weapons meant to wound and kill. He spoke proudly of Python's defeat, of his own unmatched skill, and ordered Cupid to leave such arms to gods of strength and conquest. Cupid listened without anger, but his silence carried resolve. Calmly, he replied that while Apollo's arrows could strike beasts and enemies, his own could pierce even the heart of a god. To prove his words, Cupid ascended a rocky height on Mount Parnassus. From his quiver, he drew 2 arrows, equal in size yet opposite in destiny. One gleamed with gold, sharp and radiant, crafted to awaken irresistible love. The other was heavy, dull and tipped with lead, forged to repel desire and fill the heart with aversion. With the leaden arrow, Cupid struck Daphne, a nymph devoted to the wilderness, daughter of the river god Peneus. With the golden arrow, he struck Apollo himself. In a single breath of fate, Apollo was consumed by longing, while Daphne felt only fear and rejection at the thought of love. Daphne belonged to the forest and the open sky. Her joy lay in the hunt, in silent paths beneath the trees, in a life untouched by marriage or devotion. Love held no promise for her, nor did she dream of sharing her freedom with another. Many suitors had pursued her beauty, yet she rejected them all without hesitation. Her father urged her to accept a husband and grant him descendants, but Daphne clung to him, pleading for the right to remain forever free. At last he consented, though with sorrow, warning her that such a vow stood in defiance of her own radiant beauty. Struck by love's unrelenting fire, Apollo followed Daphne through shadowed woods and sunlit clearings. He watched her every movement, enchanted by the grace of her form and the wild freedom she embodied. He marveled at her flowing hair, at the brightness of her eyes, at the elegance of her limbs in motion. The god who revealed the destinies of mortals and kings was blind to his own downfall. When Daphne sensed his presence behind her, she fled, swift as the wind racing through the trees. Apollo called after her, pleading for her to stop, swearing he meant no harm. He begged her not to flee like prey from a hunter, insisting it was love, not violence, that guided his pursuit. He spoke of who he was, Lord of Delphi, Master of Prophecy, God of Music and Healing, son of Jupiter himself. His arrows never failed to find their mark, yet one unseen arrow had struck him more cruelly than any wound of war. Though he possessed knowledge of every healing art, no remedy could soothe the burning sickness in his heart. Still, Daphne ran. The wind tore at her garments, her hair streamed behind her like a banner of escape. Apollo, driven by a power older than reason, closed the distance between them. Like a hound gaining upon a fleeing hare, he pressed forward as her strength began to fade. Her breath grew shallow, her limbs heavy, and the earth itself seemed to resist her steps. At the edge of collapse, with fear overtaking her, she cried out to her father, the river god Peneus. She begged him to save her, to hide her within the earth or change her form, anything to free her from the fate she feared more than death. Her plea had scarcely faded when a strange numbness spread through her body. Her skin hardened into bark. Her hair burst forth as leaves. Her arms stretched outward and became branches, while her feet sank deep into the soil and took root. Her face vanished into the crown of a tree. Where a nymph had fled in terror, a laurel now stood, silent, beautiful, and eternal. Apollo reached her moments too late. He embraced the tree, pressed his lips against its bark, and felt the branches recoil from his touch. Grief overtook him, heavy and unyielding, yet from that sorrow rose a solemn vow. If Daphne could not be his bride, she would be his sacred tree. Her leaves would crown poets and musicians, victors and heroes. Conquerors would bear her upon their brows in triumphal processions. Songs of glory would forever be bound to her name. And just as Apollo himself would remain eternally young, so too would the laurel remain evergreen, untouched by age or decay. Thus, the laurel became bound to Apollo, a living symbol of glory, art, and immortality. And in this ancient myth, the Greeks remind us that even gods are not spared the cruelty of love. From pride and desire are born both suffering and beauty, and from loss arise legends that endure long after passion has turned to silence.